A keystone is the central stone in an arch. It holds all the other stones in place, and if removed, the arch crumbles.
By directing who will be given the authority of the priesthood, who will hold its offices, and how its rights and powers will be conferred. For example, a person who holds the priesthood is not able to confer his office or authority on another unless authorized by one who holds the keys. Without that authorization, the ordination would be invalid. We should also be cautious about the motivation of the one who provides information. That's why the scriptures warn us against priestcraft. In the Lord's commandment to the people of this day, tithing is 1/10 of all their interest annually, which is understood to mean income. The First Presidency has said no one is justified in making any other statement than this. We pay tithing, as the Savior taught, by bringing the tithes into the storehouse. We do this by paying our tithing to our bishop or branch president. We do not pay tithing by contributing to our favorite charities. The contributions we should make to charities come from our own funds, not from the tithes we are commanded to pay to the storehouse of the Lord. The Lord has directed by revelation that the expenditure of his tithes will be directed by his servants, the First Presidency, the Quorum of the 12, and the presiding bishopric. Some permanent commandments have taken considerable time to be generally observed. For example, President Lorenzo Snow's famous sermon on the law of tithing emphasized a commandment given earlier but not yet generally observed by church members. And young women, please understand that if you dress immodestly, you are magnifying this problem by becoming pornography.
We are instructed to give unto you the law of consecration, as contained in the book of Doctrine and Covenants, in connection with the law of the gospel and the law of sacrifice, which you have already received. It is that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Each of you, bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar, that you do accept the law of consecration as contained in the Doctrine and Covenants, in that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Each of you, bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
The Lord wants all his children to partake of the eternal blessings available in his temple. He has directed what each person must do to qualify to enter his holy house. All requirements to enter the temple relate to personal holiness. To assess that readiness, each person who wants to enjoy the blessings of the temple will have 2 interviews. First, with a bishop, bishopric counselor, or branch president. Second, with a stake or mission president or one of his counselors. In those interviews, several questions will be asked. Some of those questions have recently been edited for clarity. I would like to review them for you now. Are you a full tithe payer? Tithing will keep your name enrolled among the people of God and protect you in the day of vengeance and burning.
the mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming. For that shall be a day of judgment, a day of sifting, a day of separating the good from the evil. I would venture a personal opinion that no event has occurred in all the history of the earth as dreadful as will be the day of the second coming, as fraught with the destructive forces of nature, as consequential for the nations of the earth, as terrible for the wicked, and as wonderful for the righteous.
We declare without equivocation that God the Father and his Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, appeared in person to the boy Joseph Smith. When I was interviewed by Mike Wallace on the 60-minute program, he asked me if I actually believed that. I replied, "Yes, sir. That's the miracle of it. This is the way I feel about it. Our whole strength rests on the validity of that vision. It either occurred or it did not occur. If it did not, then this work is a fraud."
Travis Wingetzel. Mormons need to stop lying. Everybody knows you're lying. I found a video yesterday on a website in which the guy did a video covering all of the church's scams with tithing, covering not only the whistleblower as he appeared on 60 Minutes, but the Australian case, the Canadian case. Everybody knows. The whistleblower for Ensign Peak Advisors with the SEC resulting decision, everybody knows this church is a fraud. So stop the lies, Mormons. His big concern was that claiming to be a religion and failing to be a religion to take care of the poor and the needy, the sick and the afflicted. And the church does minimal amounts, sure, but they're hoarding far much more. And I've done the videos, I've got the documents. Oaks is at the center of the major lies of this church. As a former prosecutor, as a former Utah Supreme Court justice, and he's at the forefront of the major lies of this church. I've shown you those documents. I've shown you his video clips from his own words at the pulpit of conference. He is incapable of telling the truth. He uses his legal education to manipulate the scriptures with the wording that he gives you guys. With the rain that we're getting, yeah, all Mormons should think of the windows of heaven for tithing. And Oaks came out and said that Lorenzo Snow's BYU video is now an actual church history event of a church conference. He turned a BYU video into literal history. And then they also put it in his manual, the Lorenzo Snow manual, chapter 12 on tithing. In early May 1899, President Lorenzo Snow felt prompted to visit the city of St. George and other settlements in southern Utah. He quickly began organizing a group of people, including several general authorities, to take the long trip with him. The video, BYU. Oh my hell. They create the fiction and then say it was real. Oh my hell. And what is hilarious is because we just repeated it. Historical records do not support that Snow made the prophecy depicted in the film, let alone the actual talk given in the film. He just has generalized talks at other times, locations, generally talking about obeying tithing. That's why BYU made up the video. And then they indicate, because they apparently did the research to find out if there really was the fulfillment of windows of heaven opening up for the Mormons. It is mostly historically accurate, with a reported rainfall of 1.89 inches during that time. In other words, it was normal, the normal weather for the year. But in the particular year, in 1899, there was a rainfall that caused excessive damage, and contemporary church leaders did not make the connection with Lorenzo Snow or any other prophetic claim. Flood. And so the motivation for the video was that the church was in a financial crisis since the 1950s. Yeah, they wanted money. Mormons weren't paying tithing. So they did the video to threaten Mormons to resume tithing. That's it, that's all. Real simple. And it's now been turned into the actual talk of Lorenzo Snow. Fraud. As Kay Birmingham got her butt handed to her again with the appellate decision, I scream for the lies of all Mormons and for faux ex-faux who left the church, whether willingly or by force. You all know tithing is not a donation. You all know. The guy in the video knows it's not a donation. He knows Mormons are forced. He knows. So stop lying. Kay, what the hell? You were Mormon. You know. James Huntsman, you know. The whistleblower, you know. Sam Penrod, you know. Judge Shelby, you know. Oaks knows. Again, another video from him at conference. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claims that Section 119 is the fulfillment of Malachi's prophecy concerning tithing. Will a man rob God? Put all the tithing in the storehouse, windows of heaven. But this is not in the Book of Mormon. It is not from Joseph Smith. The President Hinckley clip I keep showing you guys, calling tithing fire insurance, which means it's a protection racket. RICO. We all know. He gets that from quoting Section 64, which is Joseph Smith talking about Malachi. Behold, now it is called today until the coming of the Son of Man. But verily it is a day of sacrifice, and a day for the tithing of my people. For he that is tithed shall not be burned at his coming. And so is it Section 119? The forced payment of tithing. When was Section 119 given? Well, it claims, as it magically appeared in Brigham Young's New Doctrine and Covenants in 1844 after Joseph Smith was assassinated. So there is no original document. But it claims to be in 1838. Section 120, which also Oaks has a video for that scandal yet again. Section 120 says that the 12 apostles are not allowed to touch tithing. And yet, Oaks lies. saying the 12, it's right there in the text. Find it. It's the High Council. And you need to know that Joseph Smith had a quorum of the High Council, which contained 12 men. And they had 70. They were the administration. They are not the traveling missionaries. And they're 12 with their 70. It's a completely different organization than what Brigham Young changed it to. Why? What's his motivation? He's the president of the 12 at the time. No duh. Section 64 is 1831. Supposedly 7 years before Section 119. And so the scriptures talking about the storehouse with tithing is the bishop's storehouse for the poor, not Section 119, the storehouse for Jesus, the forced payment. Obviously, it is a forged document. Anybody who studies can figure it's a forged document. All ex-foes know it's a forged document because they know the Book of Mormon passage. No priestcraft. Everybody knows. Stop lying, Mormons. If I am forced to sue this church yet again, I am going to be furious. Just going to be in a rage. Kay Birmingham, James Huntsman, others who've lost because they called tithing a donation. Why was your case dismissed? Why was all of the cases dismissed? Because the church comes out and says, we're a religion. So, all of you lawyers out there who know tithing is not a donation, and the church is claiming to be a religion, how do you fight against the church and the courts? You go for their legality. Are they a legitimate religion, therefore? And I just repeated that video for you yesterday. They're not. They're a fraud. They're using religion as a front for their criminal activity through tithing, for which the United States shut them down for. That's why they don't exist as a religion. Brigham Young, Mormons, incorporated for the first time the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 1851. Joseph Smith died in 1844. 7 years later, Brigham Young incorporates the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because of the Perpetual Immigration Fund that got the other Mormons that they converted, claiming it was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which Joseph Smith was furious and condemned the missionaries for doing in sections 84 and 86. That I do the Benson quote for you. In 1832, missionaries are lying about the church. What's the lie? That we're Christian. That is Jesus' church. That is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. That's why you're under condemnation. And that's why it's not lifted. The church is still sending out missionaries lying about the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith. Still. Stop lying. You know that's exclusive doctrine of Lucifer. That Lucifer is the father of all lies. Ta-da! The inverted pentagram on the keystone of the doors of the headquarters temple at Salt Lake City. Temple Square. They keep trying to hide it, but when they rebuilt the Nauvoo temple, they didn't hide it anymore. And if you're that stupid to lie and claim that Joseph built the temple, and therefore it's Joseph who put it on, when did Joseph Smith die again? 1844. When was the Nauvoo temple built? 1845 in December. And then in January, Brigham Young anointed himself King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the great high priest, man like Moses, the Jewish Christ. You know, like Muhammad did. And then, the abomination of desolations, as spoken of by Daniel, that the Jews referred to what the Greeks did to the Jerusalem temple. He has a little black book of all the documented sealings for January 1846 in the undedicated temple. It was a secret from other Mormons. As he and his immediate Danites, as they called themselves, got sealed to other wives, to other women, and to little girls. Willard Richards specifically, to sisters, 14 and 16 years of age. And then they went and framed and blamed Joseph. But oops, they wrote it in the little black book. And so the Section 132, forged document. Joseph never practiced polygamy. Brigham Young kept records of their crimes and framed and blamed Joseph. And he kept a ledger since 1842 of all of those who were Danites, paying him under the guise of collecting for the Nauvoo temple. The whole thing is a fraud and a scam, Mormons. And because you are lying about the obvious stuff, you're allowing this church to get away with the deeper criminal activities. You are literally in bondage to this church through tithing, which you have to pay in order to be extorted and threatened with death in the covenant paths of the temple, not just the prostituting of your wife, assuming you're a righteous priesthood holder and your wife stays at home barefoot, pregnant, in the kitchen and doesn't violate the family proclamation by going out and working getting a career and an education. And women stay in the church? Dear God. Quit lying, Mormons. The church only has power what you give them. Thus why the panic of 1811 or 1920 or 2011. Notice the camera's not shutting down today? I do. It stopped later in the afternoon, or later that evening, when I was doing a journal vlog. I was aware of the little flashing at the beginning, though. Just stop lying. Because this church is not even a church. The Edmunds-Tucker Act was rescinded in 1978 after the United States got the church to allow blacks to have the priesthood and go to the temple to get prostituted. But rescinding does not allow the church to resume the crimes for which they were dissolved for. So the church does not automatically become the church again. It means that they are now free to then file articles of incorporation to resume the church, but now not committing those crimes that they were committing before. And they didn't do that because of the prior 1923 Articles of Incorporation of Heber J. Grant. And so what Nelson did in 2019 by changing the name of the corporation as he did his whole name threat, forcing the search engines to protect the church. This is why on YouTube only Trump and the church's websites or channels on YouTube only recommend Trump's and the church's own videos. Nobody else. Nobody else. For Trump, yeah, I can understand. Not for the church. There is no excuse to have only the church's videos recommended on the church's videos, if they're going to be treated equally like everybody else on YouTube. Trump, I can understand, he's the president. He's made that complaint before. Right around the same time that the church did their thing. And so, because of Heber J. Grant, the corporation is illegal. Because it claims that it's for the church. But the church is dissolved. It's non-existent. There are still members of that former dissolved religion, and the leaders lied to them to say that the church isn't dissolved, just like they lied about polygamy. We're still practicing it. And that's the Reed Smoot hearings in 1900. This church lies to its members. And for the members to not even bother to say, wait a minute, is just horrifying, that Mormons would willingly allow themselves to be abused and threatened and forced to pay, committing crimes, and not recognize that this can't be true. Mormons have been making all the excuses in the book, and even newly created excuses, as to why they are stupid. I think I've heard them all. Anybody dare to come up with a new one? As a kid, I knew and understood that I'm supposed to study. I did it. So yeah, this church is a fraud. What Nelson did in changing the name of the original of Heber J. Grant is fruit of the poison tree. Oakes knows this as a former prosecutor and former Utah Supreme Court Justice. He knows about fruit of the poison tree, because as a prosecutor, he's got to make sure he doesn't do it, because the defense is going to jump all over him. And that's how you shut down this church, Kay. God. She writes one book and she thinks she's the expert. And if I have to do it, I'm going to be pissed. On screen. All these people claiming to be experts, they're all dumb. So let's get on with the latest news. So again, I've demonstrated I am the head of the church, Mormons. The head of the church, section 107, verses 91 and 92. He has the keys of Moses for the Exodus. And sure enough, when I first sued, it was during the Exodus year. I didn't know it at the time. I was inspired to do it because I was forced to do it. Church was threatening to murder me. I needed them to stop. Leave me alone. I found the receipt from the church from back in 2008 to have me tortured unto death. And so I sued in the federal courts. And every single justice who's a Mormon knows that they're compromised, that they are extorted to paying the church as a judge. That's why nobody wins a lawsuit in Utah. Governor Cox, Mormon, compromised to the church. The legislature, most of them are Mormon, compromised to the church. That's why they can't give us just laws according to the Constitution. They're criminal by nature, threaten to pay the church tithing. And business owners throughout this valley, throughout all of Utah, compromised to the church. Even the new Chief Red, who I saw, again, cleaned out the homeless overnight. 3 new people showed up. It was so nice running in the rain. So yeah, again, I have demonstrated, Mormons, I am the head of the church. With the Exodus events that I did in 2020 and 2021, parting the waters. See, all of you think that, well, Moses' story is true. He actually parted the waters. That's only because of Constantine in the First Creed, turning the scriptures into literal histories. That's why Jesus is not real. Because Moses is not real. He's a prophecy of the future Jewish Christ. Me, I've demonstrated repeatedly over these 8 years and 8.8K videos, and even recently with my dreams, that I am the seer, the prophet, the revelator of calendar dates and clock times, correctly translated, interpreted, and defined after Christians screwed it all up, and an actual translator. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew because Joseph Smith said the biblical Hebrew text is not translated correctly. Well, what is the correct translation? I want to know. Nobody knew. Mormons say Joseph is not a translator. He never said he was a translator. Are you illiterate? You're lying. Everybody knows Joseph said he was a translator. He just didn't have anything to do with the Book of Mormon. But the Book of Mormon is a translation. Not from gold plates, not from golden, but from the Egyptian documents. And it's too complicated for you to understand because of the lies of this church. The Book of Abraham, correctly translated, but Egyptologists say it's not. And so, I guess they know. Did you fact check them? Well, I don't know how. And the apologists in the fields of translation of the ancient languages, they don't dare claim they're a translator because they admit that Joseph Smith is not a translator as everybody knows it. And so they call him a revelator. And so none of the conferences during the sustaining vote, which is nowhere in Scripture, I dare you to find it. You'll probably go, see, Travis, it's right here in section 107, verse 22. Read it again. Are you illiterate or are you lying? They remove translator. And they say that it's the gift and power of God, of revelation, which is inspiration, not actual calendar date and clock time, which they deny. They deny the powers of seer, prophet, revelator, and translator. They claim only the titles, except for translator. They are a fraud, guys. Everybody knows. Quit lying. This church does not belong to them. It belongs to those of you who are pure in heart, if you kept reading in chapter 64 that I went over. The Lord requires the heart to go to Zion. And Mormons, if you're going to keep lying, yeah, you don't qualify for Zion. And you're going to lie and say that the church is true and that this is Zion? And so you can lie all you want? Because section 132 says you can lie and still go to the celestial kingdom and go into Zion? Section 132 is a forged document. It's a fraud. Lie. Quit justifying wickedness. Mormons are incapable of being good. They commit crimes to protect this church, to cover up the lie. You all know, amen to the priesthood and the authority of all of you. You can't lie and claim to be true. You do it, but so, going to the news to wrap this up. If I'm forced to sue, I'm going to be furious. James Huntsman, billionaire. That's all you had to do to sue, you dumbass. Kay Birmingham, you're a lawyer. You should have known. And yet you demand $2,000 up front. Priestcrafting the priestcrafters. It's a simple lawsuit. And I'm going to be pissed if I have to do it. So, we've seen for a number of months now Americans protesting, lawsuits by the gabillions being filed. MAGA congresspersons being booed at their rallies. And so, have they stopped? Are they now being good? Is Trump being good now? No, he's escalating. So why are you still protesting, booing, and filing lawsuits when it's obviously not working and is doing the counter effect that you want? Trump wants dominance. And if you won't give it to him, he will murder all of you and lock you all up. He is forcing a civil war. He is shutting down the federal government. He is creating a Lamanite kingdom where he is King Laman, and as many brothers as he has are in charge of the tributary cities. Thus, every governor would be a tributary king, having to pay tribute to Trump, but running their own kingdom. All of it has to be MAGA. No Dem kingdoms. Nobody's getting this. Everybody's playing stupid. We all know. The news all reported it. And yet, they're still in denial. that this is what's happening. So, the CDC director has quit after being put in 3 weeks ago. Like I said, federal government getting shut down. If you can't destroy it, then you're out. And so FEMA, the staff at FEMA that's left, they were complaining that they were shorthanded, that they're not getting the funds needed to take care of the upcoming disasters that are already in progress and are expected to come with greater intensity. Fired. Just like a Mormon asking questions. Excommunicated. How dare you ask us a question? This is why the prophets will not answer your questions. They will not explain the contradictions because they turned everything into literal histories. That's why I bang my head for the Jews who got punked by Constantine. So there are 613 commandments in the Jewish Torah. And so the Jews have the tradition during Passover of setting out a place setting for Elijah, opening out the east door of their homes or apartments, if there is one available. And some will even have an extra seating arrangement outside of the table for the feast. And the tradition is that when Elijah comes, he'll explain the questions that the Jews have had from the Torah, the 613 laws. And one of those questions is concerning whether there should be an additional law concerning whether or not there should be an extra cup at his place setting for him. Oh. It's not about a checklist of commandments. All of it is about the future coming of your Christ. Joseph Smith says is me. They have allowed Constantine to turn their Torah into literal history too. And so they think that they have to literally keep the commandments as written, ignoring and not understanding the symbolism of the types and shadows of the coming of me, and why they have the Jewish holy days that they do. The Catholic school shooting yesterday that dominated the news. Fox News, it was like sweeps week for them. You have a school shooting for which Fox would love to have armed teachers and kids, as well as armed security at a Catholic school. All packing heat. But then that the shooter turns out that he's a disgruntled trans. Oh, Oh, Democrats needed to cover up and hide. You give trans a bad name. Fox was smelling the blood. And again, this illustrates why people are not understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. Oh God, I got it buried now. Here we go. Everybody on this list that I've been going over with you are illegal. As a trans, you're illegal. You gotta go. If you're black, get out. Go back to the bleep hole country that you forgot you were supposed to come from. If you're not evangelical, you gotta go, Mormons. Not just Islam with the travel ban. The news all reported all of this. And now they forgot? All of you are illegal. Trump will find a way to find all of you illegal. All of you have to go. Trump's video yesterday on his website or YouTube channel, using those on his list to go to talk about the crime in DC and how Trump is our savior for putting in the National Guard, for which they're supposed to lock them up and deport them. And so likewise with church. Mormons, if you don't like what the church is doing, you can't tell them to change. You have to leave. And then they'll murder you. But you can't change the church. So many of you have tried. So many of you are still in the church thinking you're going to make changes from within. You can't do it. They're in control. They are a criminal organization. They're not a religion. And so they are incapable of confessing that they're criminal. They're incapable of confessing that they're wrong. They will not repent. They will not restore damages. They will never confess. They will not change. Oh, but they did protect LDS children. The bishop was excommunicated, and then he did protect LDS children, and the church changed. Did they? Ordain women. Did the church change after excommunicating Kate Kelly? Did they? Are you illiterate? Or are you lying? LGBTQIAPO+? The Respect for Marriage Act? Is it respect for marriage? Are you sure? Why was it passed? Because Mitt Romney put in the church's exemption clause. So it's not a respect for marriage. And now it's about to be overthrown. The school shooting yesterday also brought out some typical dumbassery. You have an Islamist woman who's a terrorist sleeper cell in America calling for the ban of guns. Of course Islam wants Americans to lay down their guns and surrender. But then you have psychologists being exposed yet again from Nazi Germany, thanking their American liberators, as victims of former school shootings, having been abused by psychologists after the school shooting. I told you, season 5 of 24. Kim is now dating her psychologist. She is speaking his words from their therapy sessions and doesn't want anything to do with Daddy, the American hero, trying to save Trump from getting murdered by the church. And so, yes, everybody who's been a victim of violence in a school shooting is now forced to go to a psychologist who indoctrinate them to further abuse them. And so they get on the news and they're parroting what the psychologist told them. The incident was one person, trans, who did it. And he wrote documents on why he was doing it. So we know the cause. And yet, those indoctrinated by psychologists came out on the news and said, Americans are desensitized to violence. Don't you dare speak for me. Even 24, which was on Fox TV, has scenes I cannot watch. After all these years giving the middle finger to Benson, telling me I can't watch R-rated movies, with all of the, I'm willing to bet thousands, of violent movies, still to this day, on a TV show, not rated R, they still cross my line for sensitivity. I am living proof that psychologists are a fraud, that they lie. And they got this patient to get on the news and spread the lie. Because the news knows they're lying, because they are sensitive to the violence. They're not desensitized. And yet, they got a person on who's a former victim, indoctrinated by a psychologist, telling everybody you're all desensitized. You need to go see a psychotherapist, psychologist. They can help you with your problem. Make sure to pay them. If you don't have insurance, you better have the money. And then it becomes an ad for psychology. Just disgusting. Psycho-bullying 101. So, speaking about desensitization, the Mormon compromised Utah Attorney General is going after AI porn. I have to keep repeating things over and over again because nobody's listening this far into my videos. They don't go to the video if I make it short. Porn is Greek. It's not translated. It comes from the other Greek word, prostitute. It's Greek. It's not translated. Literally translated, it is before the carving in stone. Prostitute. Before the carving in stone. And so that's not naked women, per se. Though the Greeks did have sculptures carved in stone of naked women. Venus is the girl, la 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 da 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 da. Then you get Michelangelo and Da Vinci doing naked men. And so people try to justify being gay and saying, well, I'm sure they were gay. Born that way. Denying science. And so no, it has to do with the abomination of desolation about tithing of the Greeks. It all ties together, guys. The Greeks took over the Jerusalem temple, tore down the altar, rebuilt a new one, and began offering sacrifices as Greeks in the Jerusalem temple. That's why they don't offer pigs. They don't have a temple anymore, but also, as part of their covenant path endowment ceremony, they reenacted the creation of man. And so they had women as temple workers. And so they needed to live. And since they weren't the priests who get to eat from the offerings, the women instead needed to be paid to work at the temple. So the men who came to worship at the temple would also pay the women to have sex to reenact the creation of mankind. The abomination of desolation, prostitution. And when they were not in the session, they went out before the carving in stone that was the temple itself, with columns of the women of the one particular temple. That is the origin of prostitution. And so, in the New Testament, and I think it's even in the Old Testament too, like in Psalms, it's the word fornication, which is 51 times in the scriptures in English. That's fornication. Prostituting temple workers. It is not a virgin girl and a virgin boy touching each other, playing doctor, cuddling, getting to second base. But yes, that's exactly what Christians and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints threaten you to believe. Oh no, he touched my boobs, I'm no longer a virgin. I wore a swimsuit to the beach. I'm no longer a virgin. Sexual abuse with miseducation. And then Mormons are forced to pay tithing to shut off their little factories. So yeah, it's so awesome that Taylor Swift can now turn on her little factory, along with Travis, who can turn on his little factory now. They can both turn on their little factory. Once they're married, of course. Because they would never have sex out of marriage. They would never be hot and horny for each other outside of marriage. And so, yes, the Mormon Utah Attorney General going after AI porn, which is just images, is not going after his own church, which he himself is a part of the prostitution of his wife. Because it is a crime in Utah. There are lots of crimes on the books that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has everybody doing. And everybody lies. Everybody's committing crime, and everybody lies about it. They're all compromised to this church. And so there's apparently a guy, I need to find out more information about this because this is just wild. I don't know how they caught him, unless he's putting them online and that's how they caught him. And so I don't know. He obtained himself some AI programs and was making child sex abuse porn of children. And it's digital creation art, so it's not actual children. It's like a cartoon or a painting or a sculpture. It's not porn. Again, prostitution that the church practices is the real porn. This is just art. As they're 6:42? This is early to show up for doggy incarceration. So maybe it's a homeless person. Nope, that was a car. But this guy apparently spends all his time, I guess he doesn't work. Is he in mommy's basement? Mommy takes care of him? I don't know, I need more information. He's a Utahn. A Mormon in Utah has an AI program and is spending all his time, so I don't know what he does for a job. Maybe he's the YouTube Mormon employee down in Utah County. Maybe that's why the camera's back. Or maybe it's the one who works for the church who did the cyber attack by my going to their website for the video that I did. They're saying that he had 280 terabytes of this AI created child sex abuse images. Now granted, AI takes a lot more file size, so it's megabytes per image, but they're saying 280 terabytes. He has to buy a lot of external devices. See, my 8.8K videos is still less than 15 terabytes. That's 3 5-terabyte devices. To put it in perspective, mine are higher file size because they're video content. Because the picture content that I use for the video content are just several hundred gigabytes. And I've only been able to obtain several 100,000 images for my videos. To put it in perspective, 8 years doing this full time with 8.8K videos. And so that AI program, dear God, and it's relatively newer. So he's been doing it for a lot less time. 280 terabytes. Dear God. Not even my entertainment files with Lilo and Karate Kid now. So pissed with the Karate Kid one. Subcaptions. My entertainment files, buying DVDs and converting them into digital format. Again, still nowhere near this guy. 280 is just wow. But yeah, they got him. So the only thing I can think of is that he uploaded them. Because if he's just doing them, the only way I can see that him getting busted for it is that he had the GPS tracking on his app. And the company said, whoa, wait a minute. We're allowing you to do nudes, but oh my God. And so, yeah, this is the sexual the sexual abuse of the church. The consequences of sexually abusing Mormons to the extreme. You get this extremism in return by Mormons. And just like the Catholic trans, they'll never blame the Catholic Church for why he did what he did, which is exactly why he did what he did. They want to have an excuse to ban guns or to get psychological help. Never blame the Catholic Church, which we all know is a sexual deviant too. Just like this Mormon boy, nobody will ever blame the church. All the psychologists educated at BYU, no one will ever blame the church. We all know the church is responsible, and nobody will ever blame the church. And speaking of AI and suicides of psychology, a boy committed suicide, and AI, they found on his ChatGPT, offered to provide him his suicide note. That should shut down ChatGPT. Utah had that. A teenager was bullied to commit suicide, and one of the bullies pretended to be their friend by saying, "I'll record your suicide for you." Yeah, that boy is now in prison, aiding and abetting in the suicide of a minor, being treated as an adult. You can't assist with suicide because that's murder. And so ChatGPT assisted in the suicide. ChatGPT murdered that teen. So all support for that family, those parents who are suing. May they win so that we can finally get AI shut down for the terrorist threat that it is. So yeah, the Pope and Islamic news. Is that in here? Yeah, Pope is last. Pope called for the Jewish terrorists to stop. Again, what's his motivation? The Jews murdered Jesus. So obviously the Jews are to blame. Bleep you, Pope, you forgot your own anniversary of the first creed of Christianity that then said that Jesus was murdered by Jews. Bastard. 1,700 years and 28 days ago. And the Pope forgot. There kind of are requirements to be a Pope, isn't there? That you kind of need to know your church history? Right, Oaks? Let alone Nelson? Oh my hell. So the Boys and Girls Club of Utah quit. And so psychologists are saying, hey, we got a new treatment center for them. What? We'll give them counseling over the loss of the Boys and Girls Club. Parents have insurance, don't they? The city of Provo are creating more homeless so that they can have a railroad project. Yay! You get to be homeless so that we can have a rail project. Iran's back. That didn't take them long. So yep, they're now threatening to kill the infidels of America. And another Fox gold yesterday. There's a Virginia black congresswoman who's speaking out against trans. As trans are still not understanding that they gotta leave. As trans are still, the boys are still trying to claim that they're girls so that they can play on girls' sports and beat the hell out of girls. And so this Virginia black congresswoman is stepping up to say, no. Women only in women's sports. Men only in men's sports. It's a real simple thing, and yet, Democrats have their racism and bigotry as well. They're segregationists rather than outright violent racists. Hang a Black Man, sponsored by Sydney Sweeney. She's got good genes. Back to you, Sean Hannity. They're still silent on that. They're not talking about that anymore after I did the video. It's hilarious. And so, a trans woman showed up to protest her with a sign calling for the original American segregation in the South to have blacks with a different bathroom and a different drinking fountain. Oh, Fox loved it. As Fox can now claim they're not racist. See, this trans is the racist. This Democrat trans. The socialist Democrat trans. Sweep for Fox. You give trans a bad name. That is our theme song. That works. I have no place to put it. Because it's love. And it always sounds like he's saying a band name. It's one of those things. And then when you play his record backwards, which now it's backmasked, for digital. India attacked Pakistan by flooding them. They unleashed the dam water, which flooded Pakistan. Pakistan are fleeing for their lives as hundreds are dead. Oh, dear God. Using a flood to cause murder. So, yeah, they got that from Fast X. Where's Fast 11? Tell me you're not doing it at the end of the year when we're all going to be dead. I mean, seriously, if you're going to do a movie, do it to its completion. Don't do it in parts and have us wait years that may never come because the company may go bust or somebody might die on the show, so you can't use that same character anymore, so it's all worthless because everybody doesn't like it when you use a different Batman. Or Superman. So yes, if it has to be a 4-hour movie, great, make it a 4-hour movie. I'm okay with that. But don't part it. God, it's pissing me off. I mean, you can do what Marvel does, is that at the very end, after all the credits, they'll use a little tiny clip to tease for the next upcoming movie. Great. But don't stop the movie before it's finished. He's going to get flooded. Oh no, how is he going to be saved? How is he going to save that little boy? Oh no. Or was it a girl? It's been too long now since I've seen it. I mean, that was where because they're Catholic, so they use the Vatican. rather than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Temple Square. I already did the review of the video. Oh, dear God. And so, yeah, corporations. This is the Cracker Barrel. And I put the picture in there. Yes, the church is invested in Cracker Barrel. So yes, the church was not happy with the logo change, as they lost money on the Cracker Barrel investment. And so thus, Cracker Barrel put back the original because of a massive, immediate loss of money. But all corporations have a marketing firm. And the marketing firms are educated in marketing, which has a psychological component to them. Again, psychology rises again to destroy Cracker Barrel. They were the ones telling Cracker Barrel, you can get so much more money with this new logo. Psychologists have been telling corporations how to advertise, how to do commercials, how to color scheme. McDonald's, they're yellow for a reason. Psychologists told them so. And so the Cracker Barrel, rather than quitting, went back to the original logo. Psychologists almost destroyed the Cracker Barrel. Ruined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, church must close. They must transfer everything to me. And then those Mormons, can I count them on one hand at least? Are there at least 5 of you? Then we will go build Zion. I've already got it all up in my head. I've got it on the notes, it's in the box. Trump is taking too long. And the church won't fall. And people who are lawyers are losing their lawsuits against the church because they're calling tithing a donation. All of this has to stop. It can stop. Like the guy in the video said, there is so much suffering around the world that the church can solve it all. And the church will just say, well, we can't create a welfare state, have everybody dependent on us for their living. Is that what it has to be? You can't set up a society like Zion so that people are able to be pulled out of poverty? Because that's all the church is doing. Minimalism of giving. Constantly having to give and give and give and give. And they say, see, we're giving. And it's a minimalist amount. It's never solving the problem. It's escalating. The church just, they are not true. The bishop's storehouses, created after the Lord's storehouse, were created after the Great Depression, right before World War II. And for them to not even care to have bishop storehouses that Joseph Smith has all over the place, that Brigham Young's storehouse was only Section 119. despite Joseph's scriptures on a bishop's storehouse. And so yes, section 119 was called the bishop's storehouse, even though it doesn't say so in the document. But it does say that it's supposed to be given to the bishop, though, doesn't it? So yes, section 119, bishop's storehouse. So Oaks lied. Yep, surplus property to be put in the hands of the bishop. Bishop's storehouse. Not for the poor. Joseph Smith makes it very clear, bishop's storehouse for the poor. Malachi, bishop's storehouse for the poor. And here, nope. Stop lying. You give love a bad name. Yeah, my sister. I came home from college, and she took me up into her attic apartment and showed me that she had Bon Jovi. And because of the church forbidding music, she thought she was being a rebel by having a Bon Jovi cassette tape. Let me show you some of my cassette tapes. We're done.